As you'll take more images over time, you'll realize that there is a recurring pattern to the way you do things. For example, the way you set up your camera, the way you transfer images, the way you store your images in the computer and how you organize them, and also the way you export images for, say, printing or publishing to the web. You can refine these individual recurring steps into something we refer to as workflow. So let's talk about workflow next. So what is a photography workflow and why is it important? Basically, a photography workflow is an end-to-end system of working with images, from capture to their delivery. It's comprised of a series of interconnected steps developed by photographers in order to simplify and standardize their work. Note that the keywords here are to simplify and to standardize, because the whole point of the workflow is to make it easy for a photographer to have consistent results. For example, for a wedding photographer that shoots X number of weddings in a year, if they go to one wedding and do things one way, and they go to another wedding and do things completely differently, it might introduce unnecessary problems. What if they show up to a wedding and forget something? What if they lose images as a result of not having a proper system in place? Or what if they edit images completely differently? This could all lead to issues with their clients. And from there, it could lead to lawsuits and other potential problems. Why go through all this hassle if you can create a system that you can always stick to? That is a proper workflow. So let's now go over each step in the most basic workflow process. First is setting up your camera. That's where you decide whether you want to shoot RAW or JPEG, you decide on a color space if you shoot JPEG, and all these other relevant camera settings that all affect the way you capture images. The next step is capturing images, and that's where you're actually taking photos. Now keep in mind the way you even take photos can affect your workflow. From here, now that you have your images on the memory card, the next step is to transfer images to the computer. Now, there are a few important considerations here to keep in mind. First, you need to look at the computer hardware, and you need to also assess storage, exactly how and where you will be storing those images. After you made the decision on where the photos are going to be stored, now you need to worry about how you're going to organize them. So we come to file management. In this step, you'll be deciding on a system and structure of files and folders in your computer so you can properly organize and sort through them. Here we come to the exciting part, which is post-processing images. There are software considerations such as what software you're going to be using to edit images. Maybe it's going to be Lightroom, Photoshop, or any other software. And then there's the actual process of editing images. Once images are edited, the next step is to back everything up, because you want to make sure that everything you've done so far is not lost. And the last two steps of the sample workflow are exporting images and deciding whether you're going to be printing them or publishing them. As you can see, a photography workflow does not have to be complex. Actually, the worst thing you can do is complicate it so much that you will never actually do it. Remember, the two key words are to simplify and to standardize. So you need to make sure that your workflow is going to be standardized enough so that you can have consistency in your work, and then simple enough for you to be able to do it every single time. As you continue watching this course, you'll realize that its layout is organized similarly as the sample workflow that I just talked about. Now, there's a reason for that, and the reason is that we believe it's the most logical way to present the material, because that's the way you normally shoot. So, without further ado, let's get started with the first step of the workflow process.